You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 198, Navigating Pet Custody After a Breakup. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. How is everyone doing? The day that this podcast episode airs, it will actually be Tinkerbell's second birthday. Tinkerbell is my puppy. She is a Great Dane, 130 pounds. She's insane, and I love her to pieces. She literally has a whole room in my house that is built specifically for her, and I just love her so much. So today I wanted to share with you some of the lessons I've learned through having Tinkerbell for 2 years now. She was not at all what I was expecting, and I've learned so much through having her in my life. But I, of course, wanted to make this breakup specific. Therefore, we will begin this episode talking about how to navigate pet custody after a breakup and what I've seen my brave hearts do before inside of the Get Over Your Ex program, what works, what doesn't work, and some things that I'd really like you to take into consideration if this is something that you're really struggling with or moving through. After that, I'll go ahead and share some kind of like mini lessons, just some words of things that I've experienced in the 2 years with Tinkerbell, my 130-pound Great Dane. So before we dive in, I did want to just give you a friendly reminder, since we are nearing the end of the month, that for the month of July, we are testing out a 6-month payment plan for the Get Over Your Ex program. So if you've been considering joining but hadn't really pulled the trigger yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you have through the rest of the year to pay off your tuition into the program. This is the best breakup program out there that gets you over your ex and into your bigger and better life just in 3 months or less. It's the only way to really work with me in a one-to-one capacity through the group container. So if you want to learn more, you can check it out at dorothyabjohnson.com/getoveryourex. I hope to see you inside. Now, many of my clients struggle with navigating pet custody after a breakup. I want to start by saying that I've seen many different scenarios. So just like most of my episodes, there's no right or wrong. There's no one solution that fits everyone, but I am going to share my thoughts with you since I've seen them all. I know what works and I know what doesn't. Now, in 2016, my big breakup that really catapulted my breakup coaching career, I actually had a dog named Lucy, and she was my baby. We got her because I wanted a dog, and I'm pretty sure the paperwork was in my name. I can't really remember. However, my ex did end up being the one who kept her. And I will go ahead and talk about that experience throughout this episode. I have not seen her since December of 2016. Now, when I got a dog in 2021, Tinkerbell, aka sometimes I call her Tink, I made it really clear that she was my dog. I was in a relationship at the time, and I made sure that everything was in my name. I paid for everything. It was very clear that from the beginning, she was my dog, even though we were in a relationship. So I highly recommend for future situations to remember the whole analogy that I talk about when it comes to building your epic, amazing, bigger and better life. Build that amazing sundae while letting your partner be the cherry on top. And that way, if the cherry does roll off your sundae, you get to keep your sundae intact because it's yours and you've made that clear from the beginning. It doesn't mean that you both can't put in effort and build an emotional connection with your pet. It's just a nice way to remember to do things maybe a little bit differently than we're used to. And when it comes to splitting after going through a breakup, my initial reaction to the majority of individuals is that I don't actually recommend joint custody with your furry friends. And here's why. And I kind of feel like this is twofold. Let's talk about the pet, first and foremost, your furry friend. I've seen pets shuffled from home to home, back and forth, and it can be really stressful, kind of anxiety inducing to some dogs. Obviously, not every single furry friend is the same, but I have seen it be extremely stressful firsthand. There was a time I was living between two houses with Tink, and she struggled a lot with it. And there was very little routine, a lot of different rules for different places. And the moment she was in a new home with the same rules, with the same environment, she really started to thrive and flourish in that kind of structured environment. Secondly, having your ex in your life because of a dog or a cat or whatever furry friend you're talking about, maybe it's not even a pet that's furry, I want you to think about what that looks like long term. Like, what are the long-term implications from this? Do you want to be doing that when you have a new partner, when you have a new house, when you have a new family? Do you want to be doing that when your ex has a new partner, a new house, a new family? Do you want to subject yourself to having to see someone that you normally wouldn't have to see when you're going through, significant grief and loss? And if you've been around for a while and been listening to the podcast for a while, you know kind of the no contact rule that I teach that is extremely different than everyone else. I think it's podcast 8. Like I teach, you totally can do it. I've seen my brave hearts and my clients work together, co-parent together. So of course you could totally co-parent a pet. It's absolutely possible. I have clients who have done this and they work with me inside of the Get Over Your Ex program, and they get to this place of like indifference, and it works, and it's totally fine. But if you don't have to, I wouldn't recommend it. I personally lived in Chicago while my ex lived in Florida, so sharing custody wasn't even really a conversation. Now, if you are navigating how to do this and deciding what to do in this kind of situation, here are some considerations that I want you to think about. The first thing that I want you to be reminded of is that we really want to put the pet's overall well-being first. I think it's like really important to like back yourself out of the situation and look at what is best for your pet, period. My ex had a house with a yard with family support, and I was living in a 600 square foot apartment on the 7th floor in Chicago, gone for 9+ hours a day. This was heartbreaking to think about for myself. Me keeping Lucy did not make sense when you look at her overall well-being. I wanted to, but it does not make sense when you look at his situation versus mine. For me to keep Lucy, it would have been extremely selfish in my opinion, and it was the hardest decision ever to say, you know what, you keep her, and this house that we essentially had gotten together and we're going to move into, obviously it was better suited for her long term. And it was heartbreaking, but I had to remind myself over and over and over again that that was what was best, and I was doing what was best for her. Okay. Secondly, kind of like I just mentioned, we've got to look at living situations. Like, what living situation is best for your pet? Having a dog or a cat is a lot of responsibility, and consider if your living situation is truly what's best for them, or is it at your ex's, right? And if your living situation isn't, that doesn't mean that you can't find a suitable living situation, right? I have had bravehearts in my program who are like, no, it's really important to me that I keep my pet. Like, I want the pet. And so they do whatever they have to do to figure out a suitable living situation that makes them the better option. 3, you can look at emotional attachment, right? Who has more of an emotional attachment to the pet, or is it equal parts? Which also leads me to the next point of who has been the primary caregiver. I feel like what I've noticed in our furry friends is that I feel like whoever's the primary caregiver is oftentimes also the person that the pet has the emotional attachment to, because that's who's taking care of them on a consistent basis. I would say that my ex and I had equal parts, and Lucy when we were long distance, would share places. But I think at that time in my life, my ex was really good at being a caregiver and responsible and took really, really good care of her when she was with him. And I never had like concerns or worries about her emotional well-being or her being taken care of. Now, lastly, does one of you have legal ownership of the pet? Please keep this in mind, like who adopted your pet or who has been paying for the pet. Even if you're not the legal owner of this pet, it doesn't mean you won't end up taking on full custody, but be sure to get all that paperwork transferred. I had a dear friend who went through a divorce with her husband, and her husband was technically the one that signed all the adoption paperwork and everything, but she was truly the primary caregiver in the relationship. And so she took the dog, but she had to make sure all of that paperwork and everything with the vet was kind of transferred to her name so that there were no issues in the future. So definitely make sure to keep that in consideration. Now, here are some things to keep in mind. Do not use the pet as a way to stay in contact with your ex or have them in your life. Do not let your ex use the pet as a way to stay in contact with you or in your life. Have very clear boundaries and outline for how you want this to go. And I highly recommend thinking about how you'd handle this kind of way out in the future. I feel like there are future implications that sometimes my clients forget to look at until I really question them that we're not thinking about. Like, you're both dating new people and have families on your own, and you're like, do you really want to be in contact with each other over a pet when you have like a full-fledged family and a husband and maybe even a dog of your own? And, to each their own, perhaps yes, but how often and for what? And will you be seeing the pet in person? And how often and when and why and with who and for what? There's just so many questions that you want to make sure you thoroughly think through if you're considering sharing custody. Now, let's not diminish the fact that it's really difficult to make these decisions when you're in the heat of emotions. So oftentimes when I walk through this with clients, we, one, go to their future self, the version of you who's over her ex. How does she handle this? What are her thoughts about this? And what would she do, or what kind of advice would she give you? And two, wait to make any concrete decisions until, your desire and your attachment is reduced. And if you can't wait, that's why I'm saying look to your future self. But oftentimes there's seemingly there's urgency or a rush around this, but oftentimes it's not, a concrete fact that a decision has to be made by this date. And I love when my clients can reduce their desire for their ex, reduce the attachment to their ex, to then kind of make these long-term decisions. Now, if you do get custody and it's possible to have a grown-up conversation with your ex, figure out the boundaries ahead of time and stick to them. But also don't get stuck in a situation where you feel like you owe your ex something and it makes it sticky and icky, okay? In my mind, a clean cut makes the most sense long-term. But if that's not possible for some reason, then get clear about your boundaries ahead of time and stick to them. If you don't get custody, this is a hard one. If you don't get custody or you choose to give custody to your ex, it's going to be okay, even though you're probably in pain, and it adds to your grief since you'll be grieving your ex and grieving your fur child. Number one, feel your feelings and allow your grief. Number two, don't make this mean anything about you. Don't make it mean you're less than, or you're a bad fur mom or a bad fur parent. By you, at least what I had to tell myself is that by me giving up custody of Lucy, that was making me a better mom. I really had her interest in mind when making that decision. Number three, the first time your fur baby hangs out with your ex's new person, just know that your spot will never be replaced. You are very individualistic to your fur child. Do not take that on and make it bigger than it needs to be. Know that you can't be replaced. So overall, do what is best for your fur baby. Your fur baby's emotional and physical well-being really needs to come first. If you can do a clean cut, I highly recommend it for the long haul, but it's not necessary and you can get to indifference. But when you're trying to make this decision, please, please, please make it from future you while thinking about the long-term implications. The you who's over her ex has her amazing new partner and family and the bigger and better life. Do you have your own dog or do you share custody with a long lost ex? And I know it's not an easy decision, but I know you've got this. All right. Before we share our bonus lessons for today from 2 years with Tink, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Braveheart, for tuning into today's episode. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast for more episodes like this. And if you found any of our episodes helpful, we would love a written review on the Apple Podcast app to help other heartbroken humans turn their pain into power and their heartbreak into happy. Now, as a bonus today, I wanted to share some really short lessons I've learned from having my 130-pound Great Dane puppy for 2 whole years. It has felt like 12. But I love her so much, and I genuinely don't think I've ever loved a living being more than I love her. So let's talk about, and this is no specific order, these are just things that I've listed off that I thought would be fun to share. I think my biggest overall lesson from 2 years with Tink is patience. I am all about things not taking time. I don't believe that time is an indicator of anything. I feel like time is passive and you are the active force within that time. However, there's so many things that I've learned with Tink, and patience is one of them. It's been an ultimate lesson in patience with her experience and how she's been and learning to manage that. The second thing is don't expect things to go according to plan and don't romanticize having a dog. My life is so messy within her, like having her in it. I literally felt like I used to have this picture perfect life, like white sheets, white bedding, white and cream everything. And I still do, but I have to wash everything like every 2 days. I feel like everything gets so dirty so fast. She ate my couch and I'm too scared to buy another one. So please remember that dogs are not accessories, because I think that's what I had in my mind naively, and which I'm glad I learned this lesson now, and I learned it with a puppy. I was like, she'll just cuddle and we'll take these amazing walks. And now I would say that it's like that, but it's been 2 years in the making. It was terrible in the beginning. She would bite everything, including myself. We weren't just sitting there casually enjoying like a TV show or a book. She was running around like a psycho, and she was reactive on a leash. So her walks not only had to happen 2 times a day, but it was also all about reactivity training. So it wasn't like an enjoyable, peaceful, leisurely walk. It was learning how to control 130 pounds of reactivity. It was insane. The third thing is I have really learned that not all dogs are the same, just like not all humans are the same. When I looked online, Great Danes were couch potatoes and they sleep a lot. And my dog Lucy before this, she was a Doberman and she was the most chill dog I've ever met or had in my life. And Tink is the complete opposite. She was not a couch potato. She was not calm. She was not chill. And she was the most hyperactive dog ever. And when you have a dog that is that big, it's a lot to take on. I would say now she's a couch potato. 2 years later, she only requires like 1 walk a day and she's very much mellowed out. But I think that we forget that Great Danes also go through like a puppy phase, and they're not just small puppies. They are very large puppies. The fourth thing that I wanted to talk about, which I feel like is really useful and one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life, period, is that there's a solution to everything. Tink and I have had a lot to overcome. There were so many experiences with her that I felt like they did not have solutions, and that was devastating and scary. So much so that I thought about rehoming her. But ultimately, I found 2 amazing humans The first person was a friend named Jordan, who is very active with the Great Dane Rescue here in North Florida. And she was so kind of like used to reactive Great Danes and the breed that she had me come help her at the rescue. And she taught me how to help Tink. And she was so clear and confident that there was a solution. It was not easy, but it was the first time that I talked to someone and they were just so confident that there was a solution and there was nothing wrong. And that made me feel so calm and good about it. I also found an amazing training company called Revive Canine, and they gave me their trainer, Katie, who also completely changed not only my life, but Tink's life through positive reinforcement training. And she loved Katie. It was amazing. Katie also was another very positive, impactful human throughout this journey because she also believed that there was a solution to this problem and that it wasn't really a problem. It was just something we were working on and overcoming. And it's so great to have those kind of people in your life. Tink had a really bad experience with a training company when she was really young. And so she was a super sensitive dog and they used an e-collar. And ever since then, she, became reactive. So we spent like a year and a half undoing that bad experience through something called neutrality training, where we teach her to be neutral kind of around all of her triggers. And I actually used that training to create an indifference training inside of the Get Over Your Ex program because the principle of that teaching was really relatable to the neutrality that my clients want to create when it comes to things with their ex. And so it's really amazing. Moral of the story, if you ever feel like there's no solution to something that you're going through, I want to remind you that there is always a solution, I promise. Another thing was that I really noticed and picked up on how important routine and structure is, not only I think to dogs, but to young growing minds. It was just mind-blowing the difference that she had when she was trying to live between two houses versus when we got into one home and had a very structured routine day. She just does so much better. And it really makes me think about the future and with kids and how can I create a really strong routine and structure, something that they can rely on, but not over-structure them. You know what I mean? Something else that I want to note that's not really a lesson, but I feel like it's interesting is I was kind of wondering, like, do dogs have thoughts, right? If thoughts create feelings and dogs clearly have feelings, do you think they have thoughts? I always want to talk to Tinkerbell, which obviously I can talk to her, but I can't hear her back. And at the same time, I'm like, then that would be having a kid. So, but I just think it's fascinating to think about. Dogs must have thoughts if they have feelings. Another note that I wanted to talk about was adopting. There are so many amazing, beautiful dogs that need homes already. I bought Tink from a breeder and I'll never do it again. There are so many puppies. There are so many amazing dogs. I work with the Northwest Florida Great Dane Rescue once in a while. They need people to foster. They need people to adopt. And I know that they're not the only rescue. And this was just a one breed rescue, not even including the Humane Society or all the other breeds that need homes. And I also think fostering is a really great idea before you ever get a dog, to see if not only is the breed a good fit for you, is a dog in your home a good fit for you, is a dog in your routine good for you. When you foster, that's very a low risk way to try on, is this kind of something that fits into my lifestyle? Is this really something that I want to do? And I think it's really great. At least I know that the rescue that we work with, I think that they cover almost all expenses except for food even. So you wouldn't even have to worry about vet bills. And you're really, taking a dog in that needs a place as a temporary home. And what a beautiful way to do that. Lastly, I want to just say that having Tinkerbell in my life, I've never loved a living being more than I love her. And it's like the first kind of experience that I've had where I feel like my heart is outside of my body, and I can't explain really how grateful I am to have her in my life. And she was there for me through the heaviest period of my life in the beginning of this year when I was really struggling just to be here on earth. And I feel like she has taught me so much about being a mom than any other experience I have had in my life, which makes me feel like she was really here for a reason. And I remember getting her and having such a difficult time adjusting and thinking that I made this huge mistake. And it isn't until really like the beginning of this year and through all of like the heaviness that I've moved through in this time frame that I'm realizing that it was never a mistake at all. It was probably the best decision I've ever literally made in my entire life, because number one, I don't know what would have gotten me out of bed in the morning. And I don't think that I would have grown in such a huge way in the last couple of months or since the beginning of the year. It's almost, I can't believe we're in July, without her in my life. And she's given me such joy in my life. Some of my favorite moments are literally just like laying in the backyard with her, rolling around in the grass, or waking up and snuggling with her for like 20 or 30 minutes, just being the most present ever. She brings me into the present moment like nothing else. And I'm so grateful, and I love her to death. Happy birthday, Tinkerbell. Tink is 2, and I'm just so excited. All right, my bravehearts, I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing week. And if you want to see Tink's birthday party today, tune in to Instagram at Breakup Coach Dorothy, where I'll be posting her B-Day dinner. I got her some cake and some presents, and I am so, so excited. All right, my bravehearts, I will talk to you again next time. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course, where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.